Oh, what's up, guys? Well, I'm coming on the ass end of this get to know a comic book nerd tag thing that's been going around the community, which is a great thing. Don't get me wrong, but I wasn't going to do it because nobody has specifically tagged me. There was tons of people saying whoever hasn't been tagged, because it's been going on for a while. And then our good buddy Guido7335 sent me a message a few weeks ago that he had tagged me, and I just got around to checking the messages on YouTube. Plus, I've been doing a move and all that stuff, if you do my channel. But, two things, a lot of the questions on here, I've already made videos talking about in depth, what some of the answers, where Howlermouse came from, how I started collecting comics. And I'm one of those old school guys, old school, where, I come from that era when being called a nerd or considering yourself a nerd was just a bad thing. That was a very hurtful word towards people. And I don't consider myself a nerd for having an interest in an art form, made popular in the 20th century and carrying over, and the fact that I like really creative writing and interesting TV shows and stuff like that. I don't think it makes it a nerd. I kind of grew up thinking those people were missing out. When Doctor Who came on PBS around 81 or something like that, and the Land of the Lost cartoons, the Land of the Lost TV show, live action that came on the Saturday morning cartoons and stuff like that. I always just kind of, felt like, this is a part of my life. This is what I do over here. This is a very personal thing. I got a few friends who do it, But then I started thinking, this is a community. We need to be reminded that it's a community, and there's a lot of new people that's come in. I've got a ton of new subscribers in the last couple months. I broke 1,000, Don't know when that happened, but, and I'm on the way to passing up 1,000. And, it's time to get to know each other and do community things. And what's happened is that, oh my gosh, am I coming on my 4th year? I'm real close to my 4th year, maybe? 4th or 5th, I think 4th year coming up. And there's been a lot of people in this community gone. Things like life happens, they got bored with it, the novelty of YouTube wore off, and then there's those few that they took off because of trolling and getting picked on and stuff, just stressed them out. Nothing wrong with that, there's a lot of energy to waste. And that's the thing, some of us who have been doing this collecting for a long time, we grew up in the time where collecting comic books put a stigma on you. I had a few girlfriends who thought I was just the greatest thing since sliced bread. And they'd come to my house and they'd hang out in my room while I took a shower, and then they'd look in my closet and see my comic book collection, and they were gone. True story. I've had one of my stepdad's friends who was drunk at the time actually get in my face and rip some comic books and throw them in my face. I've had the experience of being at the spinner rack, getting some comic books at the Scotty's Pharmacy, and walking out all giddy as shit and stuff, and there's 3 guys from school sitting there like, what do we have here, as soon as I walked out, which cracked me up. So I think if you grew up in that time, instead of it being trendy now to be a geek and a nerd and have these words mean something completely different, you get a thicker skin for it. You stay around for the passion. Back then you didn't have, I've said it before, you didn't have a community online or otherwise, to kind of back you up or empower you or, have the same interest in you, man. It was few and far between. Driving an hour to a comic book shop was just the most amazing thing, because you were just like, my people, there's other people out here doing this and stuff. You're really on your own. So basically I'm going to get to the questions and answer these. I don't remember who started this. I actually had it wrote down here, but we'll get on here. First question, number 1, I'm not going to give my full name. If you've known me for years on here, if you've mailed me stuff, if you're on Facebook with me, I got a Twitter account I never use. I got a new phone, and the Twitter account will not let me access it on my phone because whoever had that number before me still uses it for their Twitter. But anyway, my name is Tim, Timothy. Can't stand being called Timbo. That ran all over me. I got called Timbo one time, just once. I corrected that real quick. That's probably the day I became a man. When and how did you start collecting? And I've thought about this. I've told the story many times. You know, I had a stepdad who either met or married my mom when I was about 3. And I had an uncle who was my mom's brother, who's a few years older than him. And there's a point in time where everybody, you know, still lived in the same house / trailer and stuff together. And this stuff was just all over the place, okay? It was Conan magazines, pulp novels, Michael Moorcock, Philip Jose Farmer, Jack Kirby. And this was back in the day before there was like real superstars in comics. I mean, you came for the character. You knew who Jack Kirby was and Stan Lee, thanks to the Marvel machine, you know, promotion machine back there that was Stan Lee and stuff. But you know, it was really about Captain Marvel. It was really about the Fantastic Four. It was about the Thing. You know, it was about Spider-Man, Peter Parker and Spider-Man. You know, these were living, breathing creatures that you read about. And I was surrounded by heavy metal magazines. And I was just absorbing all this stuff. Jack Kirby scared the hell out of me. This is one of the actual comics that my stepdad had. This is our Fighting Forces number 161 from 1975. Jack Kirby scared the hell out of me. You know, the black inks and the demons and the weird colors and stuff. You know, he scared the hell out of me. And they had Silver Age books laying around. My stepdad actually had in the bedroom, the walls of their bedroom was plastered in Kiss posters. Okay, and I knew the demon's real name, Gene Simmons, before I knew my stepdad's real name, because everybody called him Mad Dog and stuff. And he had all kinds of Silver Age books. He had actually collected comics, I guess, in the 60s, went to the Navy during the Vietnam era, had come back, and his mom had given his comic books away. And that's why a lot of comic books are still worth money. That happened to everybody. But the bitch of it was where he was on top of this mountain, you know, back in our woods and mountains back here. He told me he actually would go to his friend's house and they would get the comic books out and read them in front of him. You know. So one of the first comics that, you know, I remember reading, this is a reprint. I think it's Fantastic Four 67. Yeah. And that cover scared the hell out of me. That was just grotesque. It was all organic and rigid and all this. It just grossed me out. And I took a crayon to it and colored the white parts, you know, trying to do this. I actually would have to flip over the magazines to go to sleep and stuff. This stuff was everywhere. So it's not a matter that I started collecting, it's that it's just always been there. It's about 4 years old when I was really reading these comics. And the stepdad and the uncle would fight over whose stuff was whose, and eventually he got married and got his own place. And I would go to his place once in a blue moon, and you'd go back in the TV room, and he would sleep a lot. And you could open this closet door in the TV room, and there was like this chest. Okay? And it was a treasure chest, because when you opened it up, it was his comics. And his wife had organized them for him, and actually she was a nurse, so she took that tape that you put on your gauze, and she had, on the first comic that started with B, she would put it on there with a letter B, and all through there. And I go through there, and this is where I found out I was a DC guy, okay? And it was Our Fighting Forces, it was Unknown Soldier, in Justice League, the 100-page giants, you know, Lin Win era and stuff like that. And then I found it, I saw it, Commandy, and it was freaking over. Okay, I was probably like about 5 or 6 when that happened, you know. And before that, I was, 4 reading stuff. And some of the comics that were laying around the house was like, this is one of the actual comics, man. Molecule Man, Man-Thing, Iron Man, Return of the Mole Man. That's from 1976. So, I was 3 when he bought that, and I was reading it a year later. And I've replaced it with a cover. Iron Man king size annual number 3. So Steve Gerber was like a huge influence, but you didn't know who Steve Gerber was, and I was reading all that stuff. And I finally bought my first comic when I was about 6 years old, and it was 1979, and it was a Superboy and Legion of Superheroes. And then there's also a Thor annual that had the Guardians of the Galaxy in it, when I thought that was the bomb. I think I've done videos on that, and since I moved and reorganized my shelves, I don't know where it's at. So, yeah, basically, I didn't really think I'll consider myself a collector till around 82, when Roy Thomas, I want to say it was Gary Conway, but anyway, they had an All-Star Squadron Justice League crossover. Every year the Justice League would cross over with the Justice Society. They would bring the Justice Society, and then they brought in Roy Thomas's All-Star Squadron. I think that was around All-Star Squadron 16, give or take an issue or two, and it was Justice League of America 207. And that's when I started looking around my room and seeing like all these monster magazines, Fangora, and then over here's my little stack that is actually my stuff. All that stuff was kind of kept in my room and in that back bedroom, you know. And there was a bookshelf of pulp novels and stuff over there, you know, in the living room and stuff. So yeah, that's how it's just always around. It was, you know, dude, I absorbed that crap like a sponge. I mean, I can still remember reading some books and stuff. What were the first comics you started collecting? I've actually, you know, Superboy, Legion of Superheroes. I was around when Teen Titans and X-Men were like real popular, and I just never really picked those up. I'd get these Adventure Digest with, I like the little Adventure Digest. I like the Marvel Treasury editions. Batman the Outsiders was probably the first book where I was like, you know what, you know, I've been doing this for a while. I would love to have a book that I follow now. And back then, you know, you had comics that had been going on for 20 years, and I was like, Batman and the Outsiders, I'll just follow that forever. You know, in my young age, I was like, this book will never get canceled, which is funny. Justice League, right off the bat, Justice League, Legion of Superheroes. I like the team books. Avengers, John Byrne, David Michelinie, Mark Greenwald, that era of the Avengers. I think it's around the 170s, 180s or something. I like getting team books because money was a factor when you would get an allowance. And I like getting the team books because it had more heroes in it. Okay. Favorite TV show, cartoon. You know, I've got a bunch of shows I can go back on and say they're my favorites and stuff, but you know, the one that's always kind of stood the test of time are the original Twilight Zone episodes from the late 50s, early 60s. That's probably my favorite. Land of the Lost, I've got those on DVD, and I'm kind of leaning to that. I could name off tons of them, like X-Files and stuff, but I always come back to Twilight Zone. And I got a few VHS tapes, but I've never really bought them on DVD because they're on Netflix. You know, it's always like, you know, there's always a marathon going on, or you can find them online pretty good. They're on YouTube. But those are just timeless stories. They're perfect. And I didn't realize when I was a kid, but that's probably one of the reasons I fell in love with Planet of the Apes the first time I watched it, because years later, I found out Rod Serling, who wrote and produced and did all that stuff the Twilight Zone hosted, had come in for the script and helped with the script of Planet of the Apes. So basically, I've always considered Planet of the Apes the first Twilight Zone movie. Okay, even though the rights were bought up in 1963 as soon as the book was published in France. But you know, do you have any pets? No. Where do you live? I live in southwestern Virginia, not West Virginia. Virginia, the southwestern part. Grew up in the mountains. I've moved to Baltimore, Roanoke. I've been all over the place and stuff, and can't stand where it's flat. And you gotta, once you come out here and you get a taste of the mountains and stuff and the scenery, and it's real easy to take it for granted or feel like you're missing out in other places and stuff like that. You come to the mountains, you know. What cereal do you like? Fruity fucking Pebbles. End of story. Your birthday month. I will tell you I'm a Pisces. Do you have any phobias? No. I've had a thing with a little vertigo with heights. I got a neurosis about sock monkeys, but I just had this opinion, like, you know, again, I think it's the era I grew up in, man. You know, we grew up with Daredevils, and we grew up with Fonzie, Evel Knievel. There was no fear. You know, Indiana Jones, you looked for adventure, and you had to suck it up and do things that, you know, made you want to run and stuff like that. And nobody cried when they got hurt, and if they did, they didn't show their faces for days and stuff like that. I'm not saying it was like a man's time, but you know, it was just a time where, you know, you went outside from dusk till dawn. It was time to come home when the sun was setting and the street lights came on, and you did stuff and you sucked it up. Different time you could do that, you know. Still dangers out there, but nothing like today. You know, I don't know if it was always dangerous and we're just more aware of it, but you know, just a different time. So no, I don't think I have any phobia. I actually went ghost hunting last Saturday, and the haunted house didn't even freak me out, even though we saw some stuff. Check out my Facebook. I got a post on it. How did you come up with your YouTube name? And I did a whole video on this. I think I've told the story 3 or 4 times. My YouTube name is Howlermouse, as you can see. And what happened was that I had a job where I was working the night shift, 11 o'clock till 9 in the morning. And it was in a group home for adults with mental retardation. They call them, the proper term is intellectually delayed now. But it was a group home with about 15 people living in it. and I pulled the night shift, and they had satellite back then, and it was the great big huge satellite. This is mid-90s. And you never knew what you were going to find, but I would keep stuff on in the living room while I was waxing or cleaning or doing the laundry, whatever. You know, they'd have some chores and stuff for you to do at night to keep you busy and do the bed checks. And I walk in, there's this National Geographic on, and it's showing this little field mouse going through the desert. And it gets on a rock, and it squeaks at the moon. The thing is a field mouse, but it has the mannerisms of a wolf. It's the only meat-eating carnivore mouse in North America. And this thing, it showed it fighting. You can find these clips on YouTube. They had it fighting a tarantula, and it had it attacking, you know, giant locusts and stuff, and fighting a scorpion and stuff, and they'd eat them, you know. But where it was like in the middle of the night, and I was punchy and all this stuff, you know, from being up and all this stuff, I thought it was called a Howlermouse. So for years, and we're talking, you know, shy of a decade, I had people looking for this Howlermouse. Everybody was just fascinated with it. They believed me and stuff, you know. And I had people, we'd keep an eye out for it. Months would go by. Did you find it yet? No. Time would go on, and everybody kept an eye out for it. Nobody could find it. And it turns out I had the name wrong. It was a grasshopper mouse. In 2003, when I got the real internet and got a real desktop computer and stuff for the first time, found a message board. And, you know, back then, those were actually far and few between. And I just happened to ask, you know, I talked about the mouse, still called it a Howlermouse, and people started calling me Howlermouse in the mid-90s. I started getting called Howler here and there, you know. Over the years, it tagged on a little bit more, and now it's died down, you know. But, you know, people were just looking for it, and this message board said, well, it's not a Howlermouse, it's a grasshopper mouse. And I had run across that in some libraries and stuff, and I was like, hey, that's not it, you know. Kangaroo mice, and ended up like, I hate mice. I don't think it's a phobia, but what's ironic is that I can't stand a rodent. I look at it, I see disease. Is that a phobia? I don't know, but it freaks me out, man. I have to stomp it, I have to kill it, I have to get it, I have to hunt it down, kill it. I don't want it to touch me. I can't stand it. It's just, ugh. Alright, and that's it, guys. So that's 17 minutes of you listening to me ramble. Party on. Welcome to the community. Welcome new subscribers. You know, thumbs up if you want. Subscribe if you must. I'd like that. Alright, later, guys.